Many people know that the manufacturing sector is a key economic sector for Malaysia. They know that Malaysian manufacturing companies make products and components for the global and local markets. And they know that these companies, especially the E&E companies, employ hundreds of thousands of Malaysian employees. Additionally, the E&E sector has consistently comprised around 40% of all exports for Malaysia. However, Malaysian manufacturers are doing more than just making high-tech products in Malaysia. They are engaged in higher-end activities, including demand-driven R&D activities to make better products and services for the global and local markets. 10 years ago, the Malaysian government, leading multinational corporations or MNCs, and academic institutions agreed to collaborate to drive R&D to the next level in Malaysia. They founded a not-for-profit organization called Collaborative Research in Engineering Science and Technology. That is quite a mouthful, hence they used an acronym and called it CREST. Today, CREST has 111 members comprising of leading multinational companies, large local organizations, SMEs and universities. It is backed by the federal government through EPU, MITI, MOSTI, MIDA and NCIA. This is session 1 of the CREST 2022 video session series. In this session, some key CREST members talk about why they think that R&D is a good idea for Malaysia. Along the way, this session will also showcase how CREST works.
Welcome to the first CREST 2022 video sessions. I would like to introduce to you 3 distinguished gentlemen who will be in our panel this morning. The first one is Dato Ooi Boon Chai, the former Senior VP of Global Operations of Broadcom Inc. And then we have Dr. David Lacey, the R&D Director for AMS Osram, and Mr. T.K. Tan, Managing Director of Clarion Malaysia. Let us start with a bit of history. How did CREST come about? Let's ask some of our founding members. Dato Ooi, would you like to take us back to the beginning?
Jeffrey, good morning, right? And from California. I joined the Penang electronics industry in 1976 when I joined Intel Malaysia, Sendirian Berhad, right? Of course, our focus was first on manufacturing. Then later, our focus moved to products. What is it that we were manufacturing and how did it get introduced into the consumer environment as well as the corporate environment? And finally, we were able to engage in R&D people who delivers these wonderful new technologies. Okay, so there was a 3-stage process in my view, right? The first 10 years or 15 years, R&D was not in our scope. And if we ask anybody in California, they would just shoo us away, right? 1980 to 2009, I was actually not working in Malaysia, but I want to fast forward to 2009. I was back in Singapore and Penang when I joined Abago Technologies as the Senior Vice President for Global Operations. And I was based in Singapore and Penang. And since I came back to Penang, I obviously rejoined the Penang local captains, MDs, and vice presidents in many of the MIDA, MITI, MOF, Penang state government, dialogues and forums, right? We were usually invited to attend to give our opinions. However, in 90% of the dialogues, if you were talking to the government and all these ministries that I talk about, and somehow there was always a bigger buzz to move the conversation to R&D and chip design. In the minds of the Malaysian senior government officials, we must move upwards to higher level skills, and hence we won't need to hire so many foreign workers, and Malaysians can achieve a higher income. Logic is not incorrect, Jeffrey. But no doubt, there was little to no comprehension of what is chip R&D. But in any case, a few of us gathered to ponder this question of how to initiate Penang E&E R&D, as we know it. Doing it from memory, there was Jordan who played a very significant part. Myself.
He was with Altera at that point.
Was with Altera, yes.
Yes.
And Sophie Osman, as you know.
Yes.
And later on, I'm sure you joined into the group, right, Jeffrey?
Yes. Yeah.
And I may meet some of the MDs, right? And some from Intel as well as Motorola and so on and so forth. Right?
Absolutely.
And Jordan did a superb presentation. Impressed Najib to provide $100 million funding to CREST to launch the Penang's R&D through the CREST organizational structure. E&E companies will fund 50% of the R&D costs. So it was not where we were just, asking the government to fund everything, but we also made a commitment to CREST and to this effort. We would fund 50% of the R&D cost.
The industry ended up funding more than 50% in the contribution.
But the goal was no less than 50% was the
no less than 50%. Absolutely.
We actually did better, as you pointed out.
Yes.
And then we made a practical observation that says, hey, we pick projects that are very, very complicated, impossible to finish. We will never be able to showcase that something did happen. So we pick projects that have a duration of 2 to 3 years and not 5 to 10 years, right? And I think the idea was to showcase that things were being achieved, okay? And lastly, we said this effort should grow R&D engineers with participation of local universities, okay? And it was not to be that we would just send people to do projects, but they didn't get any technical and educational credits from it, right? So,
yes.
So I think that was one of the fundamental 5 or 6 key objectives and tenets of the team, right? Of the management team.
Yeah. So I think you hit a very important point, Dato, in a sense that very important to this entire process is the governance of what we do. And we wanted it to be completely transparent. We wanted the industry to participate, to do a blind review of the project so that we don't, intervene to say, I like that project because I like the guy. It has to be by merit.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think along the way that we have some very good success stories. Those that are small projects that, one that comes in mind that we like to showcase is we spent 130,000 ringgit actually on a project that produced something that the company, an SME in this case, actually managed to sell in the millions into the marketplace, not just in the country, but regionally. What would be the motivation for MNCs to be part of CREST? I mean, why would you want to do R&D if R&D was done, at HQ or somewhere else? Why was it important for MNCs to participate with CREST?
MDs and the captains, as you call them, don't take any initiative in this area. It would have been fine. The multinationals would be happy enough to give us work in Penang, and then that's the end of the accomplishments, right? But I think for the local engineers, just like every engineer I know, they strive to be much better, much more technically knowledgeable, and do original work, not just somebody else's work, right? I have not found an engineer that turns down an effort to go and learn something completely new, to go and lead something completely new. And that to me is very motivating as the leader of the organization, right? Where you have your people being so highly motivated. So
right. So if you were to compare back then in 2012 and more or less today, would you see some improvement with regards to the satisfaction of our people, of the engineers, in Malaysia, in Penang?
I was actually in Penang for 3 or 4 months just recently. And, I must say that I have seen a tremendous amount of innovation that has actually been able to be monetized, right? SMEs who have gone public, right, in the Malaysian Stock Exchange, right? And it would not have happened if this team of people were just basically doing assembly work, put it that way. I don't mean to make that sound bad, but you have companies like Emulus, right, who now design and build their own testers and they compete worldwide. Okay. I toured their factory, and their factory is actually better than the Avago factories. Okay. Only because it's 20 years later than Avago factories, right? Another example is Great Tech. Okay, this little company is growing and is in many areas that eventually will showcase the company very well, right? Medical, automation, solar, batteries, batteries. So I think I'm seeing all of those because of the taking the next step.
Yeah.
Not just doing manufacturing, but doing R&D, right? So it's starting to show, and it's starting to show that it can grow shareholder value, put it that way, right?
Yeah.
Government always gets a benefit when the economy is doing well, right? When people and when we can generate exports and so on and so forth. So I think definitely the government sees the electronic industry, sees the SME efforts, the growth in Penang. I'm shocked by the amount of condominiums that are being built, right? Maybe overbuilt, right? But that's all because there are people with the capability to acquire them and live in them, right? As far as the individuals are concerned, I think it's tremendously motivating, right? I see so many people who are working with the SMEs now. 12 years ago, that wasn't the case. 12 years ago, if you say somebody, why don't you go work for this SME? You say, no, why would I go and get a 50% pay cut, right? Today, there are very, very smart people who are working for the SMEs because they believe that maybe if they struggle 3, 4, 5 years, they can get 10x. Okay, and that is motivating for those people, right? So I think Penang is starting on that track. Okay.
Thank you, Dato.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about R&D in Malaysia and why is it important for the country and the companies that operates here. So, Mr. TK Tan, could you please share your viewpoints?
Over the last 2 years and 2.5 years of COVID, where parts are not available, or difficult to source, you need to be able to implement design change to ensure that the product can still go out the door, that people still can assemble the finished goods with, of course, the consent of the customer after testing and validation. If you don't have a qualified and experienced R&D, that would have been totally impossible to do, waiting for instruction from headquarters while they're trying to take care of all the other subsidiaries in the world. To be able to do everything under one roof has helped us to stay alive. And that cannot be a simple engineering department. It has to be something that's grown over time. And we are glad that we have done a lot of investment in R&D over the last 25 years to do this. The automotive customer from the east to the west has got different requirements for components and what they call trusted suppliers. So unless you can change the design to fit their requirement of what they're used to or their systems and standards, you can't qualify it for the client, okay? So to be able to develop a platform, adapt it with the parts that they term key supplier, and all this requires R&D work and development engineering team to do that.
So one of the key things that CREST tries to promote is collaborative R&D. In some sense, it's a little bit counterintuitive because R&D in the past, everybody wants to do it for themselves and within their own organization. But today, we think that collaborative R&D is essential for you to work together with other parties in order for you to create new value. Do you feel the same way about R&D?
Yeah, because if the culture is not intrinsically in the community, you can't just put an engineer that has got no concept or ability or familiar with. So the fact that we are working in CREST with academia and universities means part of this, it's already indoctrinated, or shall I say it, incorporated into their culture as a student to know they can go that far. That means compared to, let's say, 40 years ago, you just want a job. You just want a job that is secure in production is all you can get. Now, they can aspire, they can think about how they progress locally, having the comfort of being in Penang and be able to take on challenges that the world can provide from here with their team. And I think all the MNCs are doing it, and the local company like us, which is an international joint venture, we're looking at the same thing.
And one other thing that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Tiketan, is our academia ready to collaborate with the industry in the country?
For me, I think they need a lot of input from groups like CREST, because CREST is basically honest to the core. Your pro bono board normally tells them as it is, no dressing up, and that will give the university a very clear view of what the business community requires. And that, I think, will help them to accelerate. And I mean, car is a mechanical device, and now we are talking about software-defined vehicle, connected vehicle. That means every single electronics portion is going to be accompanied by serious software integration. Now, it's no longer just E&E, it's E&E mechanical and software, right? So unless it is understood by the academic community of Malaysia, number one, communication requirement in different culture, whatever body language and languages you can use. Number two, the concept of integration, software and hardware. Number three is the net performance. Can you beat the performance? Can you make the cost? Can you make sure that you got yourself a finished product that is world competitive? And I don't think there is a problem here, provided it's openly addressed. That means I don't think we should protect the students because they are still young, like parents, they're going to go into big, bad world. No, they should know where they are stepping into, and they choose their career path now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. CREST has also recorded key R&D successes over the past 10 years, including the successful completion of its GaN-on-GaN program. So the program has positioned CREST at the forefront of gallium nitride research for the production of high-powered LEDs. R&D results have shown that GaN gallium nitride is the material that is also relevant in the next generation of power electronics, radio frequency products, micro LED displays, ultraviolet LEDs, and laser lighting. So I would like to invite Dr. David Lacey to share some insights on CREST's GaN-on-GaN program and its benefits. Dr. Lacey?
Yeah, thank you. The program started because we identified a gap in the chain of technologies leading to LEDs. So we recognized that although Malaysia was strong in the assembly business for 50 years plus, and more recently in the fabrication business, the first step in the chain, the growth of the crystal, there was no activity in Malaysia. So having recognized that, together with CREST, we tried to put together
an activity, a consortium, you can call it, to get up to speed with that technology. And I think we've been quite successful with that. We now have 2 Malaysian universities publishing world-class research in the area of gallium nitride technologies. And that's created a situation where the universities and the students are ready to support the broad semiconductor industry, because at the same time, the semiconductor industry more generally has woken up to the value of gallium nitride in the way that you said, Jeffrey. The number of applications of gallium nitride in the next period, looking ahead, we now see RF, we now see power opportunities in addition to all the opto opportunities. And most semiconductor companies are interested in establishing a position in gallium nitride technology. And therefore, the work that we've done has positioned Malaysia and its universities in a great place to participate there.
Yeah. So, when we started this discussion about 6 years ago, we had a small handful of gallium nitride researchers who's got any kind of exposure. Today, we have around 80 gallium nitride researchers. Is that something that from coming from the industry, you find it to be something of an advantage for Malaysia?
Definitely is, and I think you can see that in my own company, AMS Osram's decisions to invest in those technologies in Malaysia is at least partly driven by the fact that we knew that there was available talent to develop and operate those processes. So having those skills is absolutely critical to some of the decisions large companies are making about where to invest in the technology. And so in Malaysia, we're not the only one. Other companies are also making that decision to invest here in 3-5 gallium nitride technologies because there's a talent pool. So no doubt it's a direct result of the program and the availability of those skills, 80 plus people. You don't need thousands, but you need a few hundred very skilled scientists, and we have the first 80. We're doing well.
Before we end, sorry, I've got one more question for the both of you. What was the motivation for the MNCs to start CREST? From your viewpoint, why do you think CREST is important in this, in the whole scheme of things? And how does it benefit MNCs, the government, academia, or even the local companies? Maybe Dr. Lacey, you want to start?
I think in a word, it's paranoia. So as I've been based in Malaysia for some years, and the multinational companies especially are quite ruthless at times in the choice of locations. And I was interested to build on the success of Malaysia so far. And when we compared Malaysia to other locations like Korea, like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like Taiwan, we noticed that this R&D dimension of the chain was somehow disjointed in Malaysia. There were good universities, but there was some gap between the universities and industry. And when we looked at those other places, we saw that they had ways of building better relationships there with their universities. So part of the reason to form CREST was to establish a body which could build that linkage to the universities. So I think we've been successful in that. At first, the universities were wary of us. They hadn't had a great deal of interaction with industry over the years, but CREST has been very successful in building trust, and now CREST being in a position to neutrally talk to universities and talk to industry and build those relationships. So that's really working. And now having that, we're from that ruthless multinational perspective, the ability and the demonstrated ability to do that transfer of research work into development and manufacturing allows us to compete in the region. So again, back to the start, we need to be paranoid. There are other parts of the world which are trying to eat our lunch, and we need to compete and stay up to speed. And CREST's role in building that university relationship is enabling us to compete.
Thank you. TK, do you have any thoughts?
How can I put it? Let me put it this way. I think there are a lot of policies are based on buzzwords. I think the difference between coming up with an idea and to walk the walk and talk the talk, that means the investment in time, the investment in effort. That is what CREST has done. That means we mooted an idea and we spent the last 10 years doing it. Okay? And I think the pro bono board helps a lot because they are from the industry. They know what they need. They know how the world is moving day by day, hour by hour, second by second. So we're not reading newspapers to tell the government, hey, guess what? It's not. It's what is happening in our company today. And we share it openly in terms of technology. Now, the other part that to me, what that translates to is a team of industrialists sharing the information with the government and the academia to get the focus action correctly. We might not be able to address the whole world, but we address the ecosystem here. And we all know there is an advantage, that we know the recipe is correct, all the parts are there in the jigsaw puzzle, in the Lego pieces, we just got to make the picture. And I think if the industrialists are here doing it day and night for 10 years, we all believed in it. And for us to show the government that we are here to do this pro bono, I think instill trust in the academic environment that we are not talking from newspaper. Front page cover, buzzwords, we tell the truth. Sometimes it's very painful. And I think that realistic measurement is what everyone is avoiding. And when things goes wrong, well, we don't have enough right people. We don't have enough good engineers. We don't have enough engineers. No. We can do that. And that's why all the multinationals, I'm not speaking on behalf of them, even multinational joint venture like myself, are still operating today. And we are competing against Japan and Europe and US. We are not the expert, but we are the integrator. In other words, you either produce the raw material that goes into the kitchen, or you are the chef that puts it together. Both of them exist in Malaysia. What else do you need to go forward? It's like, why can't we see it for ourselves that it's all there? And I think CREST is doing that. CREST is actually showing that you can churn out the dish with your local raw materials, with your local chef, with your local kitchen. And I think that is a success story that the government must hear a lot of, because everyone is worried about, can we? Are you sure we can? I can say, yes, we can, but you got to be patient. You got to you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. Otherwise, it's just a buzzword or front page news.
In running out the first CREST 2022 video sessions, please allow me to reiterate why R&D is important to Malaysia. In the 1970s, our competitive edge was shaped by three factors: low labor cost, favorable tax incentives, and investor-friendly government policies. Today, there are other locations that offer lower labor costs, more favorable tax incentives, and perhaps even more friendly government policies. Moreover, things move very quickly in the high-tech sector. This is why CREST is at the forefront of collaborative R&D in Malaysia. R&D is key for businesses as it provides powerful knowledge and insights. It can lead to improvements to existing processes where efficiency can be increased and costs reduced. R&D also supports MNCs and SMEs as they strive to develop new products and services. It allows them to survive and thrive in competitive markets. At a wider level, the benefits of R&D extends into entire sectors as well as positively impact on the wider economy, including nurturing of high potential talent, creation of IPs, and ultimately providing real-world benefits to people. In view of this, CREST will continue to leverage on government support as well as industry and academic participation for mutual benefit. We are laying the groundwork for the benefit of the new generation of Malaysians, tech professionals, and technopreneurs. The Gan on Gan success story is one of many success stories in CREST's history. We will talk more about CREST's achievements in the next video session. Thanks for joining us, and for more information about CREST, please visit us at our website, crest.my.